And welcome back, everyone, to episode 73 of the Sports Coverage Podcast. My name is Andrew, alongside my co-hosts Chase and Vince. And today we are joined by a very special guest, Dave Johnson, the Wizards play-by-play voice on and also announcer for Monumental Sports Network and former MLS announcer for Washington. So welcome, Dave. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you. And I'm still MLS announcer for DC United. I'm still going strong. So don't fire me yet. There's enough firing around broadcasters. So I'm still going on with that. But I'm very blessed to still be doing so many things, and it's great to be with you guys.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. And I also forgot to mention doing some work with the NWSL, which is awesome as well. And I can't wait to talk about that with you today as well. All right. So we might as well get started. I say we hop right into it with the Wizards because, it has been a huge week in the NBA with basketball. And for the Wizards, they walked away with two amazing first-round picks. And I'd love to get your take on that because, when you came to talk with us at Georgetown, you mentioned your bit of dismay with the fact that the Wizards came away with the worst pick that they could possibly have out of the lottery from their position. But in the end, they walked away with Trey Johnson from Texas and Will Riley out of a trade with Jordan Poole from Illinois with pick 21. So I'd just love to get your overall thoughts on the draft class, and then we'll dive more into kind of how those picks came to be.
Well, yeah, the dismay is just obvious. It's something our general manager Will Dawkins talked about. Look, if you had a chance at number one versus number two, you'd be disappointed. So 1 versus 6, it's disappointment. But Will had said a year before that this whole process that the Wizards have been on, really that started in 2023 to rebuild, was not all about getting Cooper Flack, not all about one player. Because that's not how you build a championship contender. And he was confident that this is a deep class, draft class. As I always tell people, we'll know if this was a good draft class 3 or 4 years from now. That's because there's a big jump to the NBA. Having said that, the way the draft shook out, we got excited, quite frankly, when we realized, well, one of our picks is either going to be Trey Johnson or Ace Bailey. At least that's the way it felt as we were watching it draft night. We got Trey Johnson, the best shooter in the class. And as I've told people over and over again, the NBA, you can have all kinds of schemes and this and that, and you want to be a good defensive team, but you still have to score. There's a 24-second clock. You need scores. You need to put the ball in the basket. And so Trey Johnson can certainly do that. And I think there's, as the moves are made and how we acquired these picks, we obviously Will Riley, and then we get a second-round pick in Jameer Watkins, and we're also very excited about from Florida State. If my math is correct, over the last 3 years now, 3 draft class under this management, we've had 10 picks, and 7 have been first rounds picks. So that's showing you're building, and we're still building, and we don't know what this team's going to look like in 26, the summer of 26, when we talk again. But the point is, you see what Oklahoma City did, obviously. And look, there's natural comparisons when our general manager comes from Oklahoma City. But it's not just as simple as, all right, we're gonna lose, because you don't go out to try to lose. And that's where the Wizards, I can say with pride, as we look at that season past, we had 18 wins, yes, but we did it. No, you're not proud of 18 wins, but you had 18 wins because we let the young players play. Whereas there were some other teams, they let players that could have played, that were veterans and that were healthy, and they sat them out. And I'll give you an example of how we 2 examples of how I think we respected the game by being competitive. I think about being Denver twice last year, and including on the road. So in other words, if you're purposely trying to lose, you certainly don't do that to Denver. And then the last game of the season against the Miami Heat, Bob Carrington has a game winner. So I think we knew we were going to be a lottery team because we were not in the playoffs, but we did not compromise the culture and commitment to winning in the process of trying to get a good draft position.
Yeah, it's real quick, a little bit of background. I'm currently sitting next to a Miami Heat fan from Miami, so sure, bittersweet moment for him.
Yeah,
But
I mean, I honestly, I'm gonna be so honest with you. I stopped watching after the All Star game because of how disappointed I was in this Miami Heat team. Um, I mean, it's kind of like what's going on with the Wizards in a way. I mean, with the Heat, it's kind of like they're bringing in the young guys that want to actually play them. But I completely agree with what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, and the other part is okay. You can draft these players, but you have to develop them. And again, I'll keep referring to Oklahoma City and why not? They're the champions. But the culture and the player development programs are so key because if you're again, it's the quantum leap, which are whether you're playing in Europe or whether you're playing in wherever you're. The NBA is just such a high level. It is just such a high level. Everyone can look good in a college game, and not everyone. But what I'm saying is that doesn't diminish players that achieve high levels at college or in Europe. But now that we have, for example, Trey Johnson, Will Dawkins in January showed him a film of plays that he took off. And he said, look, if you're going to want to make it in the NBA, you can't do that. You can't do that. There's no plays off in the NBA. So I think that's the other part of what you're hearing from various coaches, college coaches saying they never have, or they were appreciative of, I should say, the extent at which the Wizards do the research, the scouting. There's a sense that young players want to come here because it's a place of opportunity, and that all bodes well for the future.
Yeah, and we've seen Washington obviously develop their players like John Wall and Bradley Beal. So I mean, it can definitely happen. It's not like they can't.
Yeah, no, and that's the other. But you bring up those two players, tremendous players. John Wall, played with reckless abandon, and quite frankly, that probably, shortened his career because of injuries. And I love the John Wall jersey. The other part of the equation is you have to get lucky. And when I say lucky, you have to stay healthy. You have to stay healthy. And look, LeBron. What if LeBron James, 2 years into his career, had a serious knee injury or something? We're glad he didn't. But what I'm saying is that's as hard as these guys play, and as fast. I'm just grateful there are not more injuries because when the ball goes up, they get after it, and the hardwood is the hardwood. And every team is a major knee injury away from suddenly changing the way things go.
Yeah, we've seen that with the Celtics and the Pacers, obviously, and the Bucks with Dame, Halliburton, and Tatum. So it's definitely possible.
Yeah, I'm having trouble hearing you, but the your question was about the injuries, or
yeah, he was saying about how Dame, Halliburton, and Tatum all kind of went down with injuries at the
oh
same.
no, correct, right? No, that's just it. I mean, um, you can plan and plan and plan and construct, um, and then you have to be lucky. I mean, look, the Wizards mid not that long ago, relatively speaking. Now, in every season feels like 10 years when you don't make the playoffs. But the period of time when we had Wall and Beal and Marcin Gortat and and I'm not saying it was a title contending team, but Paul Pierce played with us. You felt like we were making the right moves to really try to push the envelope. If John Wall doesn't break his hand in a playoff series, does that change? Um, and then that's not you still have to, and the old cliche is everyone has injuries. I understand that. But every team that has injuries to key players, um, that's not going to be good. And look, let's face it, full credit to Indiana. But what did we all think when Tyrese Halliburton went down in Game 7? You just don't have a great feeling that they're going to be able to pull it out without him involved. And again, it's the nature of the game. This is a 24-second clock. You can't say, all right, we just lost our key player, but let's hold on and defend the goal for the next 50 minutes and shut them out. That's not going to happen.
Right.
Yeah, and One of the more popular topics with the Wizards right now is obviously the Jordan Poole trade, in which you guys traded, a young star guard, for a veteran like CJ McCollum and another veteran forward like Kelly Olynyk. So I kind of want to get your opinion on that, and how do you think the Wizards are going to be able to kind of transition into that, with obviously Jordan Poole being one of their better players throughout the last couple of years or 2 years.
Well, and that's just it. With this roster, it's always going to be in flux. And Jordan Poole is a great, veteran, if you will. He's still young, but he's older than, those when I mentioned those draft picks, we've got like 10 players and the average age is 20. So that just shows you how young we are. Um, so you're going to have veterans and the right veterans, quite frankly. I mean, people talk about how we acquired Chris Middleton, and we're keeping Chris Middleton is in the mix. Marcus Smart, when we acquired him last year, in terms of guys that can bring the right culture, the right attitude to the club. So Jordan Poole provided us some great moments, and he's a terrific guy on and off the court. And I already kind of teased one of his moments. He had that game winner at Denver against the Nuggets. So a terrific player. But CJ McCollum, will come in and we think, all right, well, how's the backcourt going to look with a Bob Carrington and a CJ McCollum? Because I think we feel that Jordan Poole needs to be on the ball, but Bob Carrington also needs to be on the ball. So there's only one ball. And quite frankly, the year before, when people said, well, Jordan Poole's struggling, well, he was kind of out of position. And then when he was able to be on the ball, you saw the real Jordan Poole. So I think where I look at, I'm excited about seeing a Bob Carrington, C.J. McCollum bench. Pardon me, backcourt. A Trey Johnson coming off the bench. And again, you have a Bilal Coulibaly with Chris Middleton in the front court and an Alex Sarr. Let's see what the hell they do this season. It's going to be fun, I think.
And another, keeping up with the Wizards, the Wizards drafted Florida's Walter Clayton Jr., one of the best players in college basketball last season, but they quickly traded him to the Jazz. And now that we're seeing Jordan Poole get traded, the addition of Chris Middleton last year, we're obviously seeing some age added to the team with Chris Middleton, CJ McCollum, Kelly Olynyk, guys like that. Was trading Walter Clayton Jr., who some see as one of the best young guards to come up through the league in the next few years, was that a smart move for the Wizards?
Well, I mean, yes, I think that's, I don't think they saw a place where he, again, success in the NBA is about, yes, you have to have talent, but then you have to have the right fit and opportunity. And an example of that, most dramatic might be Ben Wallace is in the Hall of Fame. He was with the Bullets / Wizards. He was a nice role player. He gets traded to Orlando, same thing. He ends up in Detroit and ends up a Hall of Famer. Now, that's not to say, well, boy, did Washington, miss it. Boy, did Orlando miss it. It became the right fit for what he was asked to do in Detroit with the players surrounding him. So this is a team sport. And so, as you know, and so as they put pieces together, there are some players that they say, all right, I think they're going to be a fit with us. That doesn't mean they're not an NBA player. That doesn't mean they're not talented. But again, there's 30 teams and everybody's got their own idea of who's going to fit with their team.
And then our last question on the Wizards, they're a very interesting team going into next year, but Alex Sarr being the number 2 overall pick last year, some would say he had a disappointing season. Some say he would have an average season, but definitely not the season you would expect for the 2nd overall pick in the draft. So how much do you think he will improve next year with really an entirely new, different Wizards team, aside from the young core that they already drafted?
I have full confidence in Alex Sarr. I already think we've seen flashes and moreover flashes. I mean, he is a smart player. He is a versatile player. And again, he I'm going to look up what his age is, but again, he's part of that 19 to 20-year-old deal. So I'm not worried about this is not about any players. Wow, how did they do in their first year? We want these players to make us a championship contender in their third or fourth year, and that's the key.
Yeah, exactly. And also with Alex Sarr, I mean, now with the addition of Trey Johnson, who, as you mentioned, was one of the best shooters in this draft, that kind of is going to pull away maybe some of the double teaming that was happening to Alex Sarr pretty early on in the season this year. And hopefully that will allow both of them to get more shots up as the season continues on.
Yeah, it's going to be there. What was made this team fun was every game. It didn't matter. I mean, the record is not on their minds. You go into this season knowing we're not supposed to be a playoff team, but so they go out every night and they want to show something different. They want to show they belong, and that's what makes it fun. And teams, Draymond Green and Steph Curry said it when they played us in December last year. Wow, they won Golden State, but they had never, it'd been a while since they felt that kind of fight, if you will. So. And that's what this season is going to be about. It's going to be a learning curve it's again, I've brought this up several times now, but it's such a big jump from whatever level to the next level. You can have, success I mean, even a Victor Wembanyama it's taken a transition that he wasn't the finished product in his first year or his second year, and that's part of when you decide you're going to build through the draft. Other teams, Brooklyn, created that dream team when they had Durant and et cetera. And that didn't work. On paper, it should have. It didn't work. It's why, this is a challenging league, and that's why you salute whoever does figure out the puzzle and get them to the title game.
I mean, you're preaching to the choir here. I'm a Brooklyn fan, so
Right. Right.
Yeah, it's been a rough couple of seasons since then, but I think we're hopefully making our way back.
Rough couple of weeks. That draft was not it, buddy.
I don't know about that one. I think in the end,
I tell everybody, this draft. What is this? 2025.
Yeah,
we'll make the grade in 2028, 29.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
I'll give you a great example. Brooklyn hosted the draft in 2013, and maybe it'd be the first time they'd hosted it.
Yeah.
And I was doing a pregame interview with Wes Unseld in the hallway, and in that hallway, when Wes Unseld Jr. was the coach, in that hallway was a picture of the draft class of the lottery picks, 14 lottery picks from that year. We probably could point to 3 that were still having an impact in the league. And, this is probably whenever we were having this conversation, you can do the math at, 7, 8 years. So, and I'm not, trying to diminish. It's just a tough league.
Yeah.
And you cannot, you look at, you grade draft classes years down the road. And that doesn't mean that any team got it wrong. It just means that, we cannot see the future. We think and we try to project, but these are guys that in Europe and college are playing 27 or 35 games a season or whatever. You've just done, that's 2 months of an NBA season. It's a hard league.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for so much of your commentary on the NBA, but we'd love to switch gears a little bit to some soccer. Vince and I don't know if this is on purpose, but we have the exact same soccer jersey on right now. But I'd love to talk about the NWSL, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you've already gotten the chance to be a part of a couple of the games with the Washington Spirit, which have thus far been one of the most successful teams in the growing NWSL. From both a fan base standpoint and from performance standpoint. So I just love to hear what's it like to get to be a part of this new growing league in the U.S.
Well, it's exciting because, hosting an event like the Olympics or World Cups, that's one thing. Actually doing a professional league, that's a different story. Obviously in the men's World Cup in 1994, before you guys were born, we hosted. And it was the most successful World Cup ever. Well, that didn't mean that running a league was going to be easy in this country where there's so much competition for the sports dollar. And moreover, when you create fans, it's not overnight. It becomes a generational thing. And I grew up in the 70s, and we did have pro soccer here, but it didn't end up lasting. However, I grew up, knew the game. People grow up, they have kids, then they buy season tickets, and then it becomes more successful. The same thing happened in women, and with the women's soccer. In 1999, we hosted an amazing Women's World Cup in the United States, and you think, oh, about 90,000 people in big games, we'll have a successful league. And we started the women's. It was called the WUSA. It had the iconic players, Mia Hamm, and right down the list. Lasted 3 years. Another league starts. I think lasted again 3 years. So the NWSL actually needed support from the federation to get it off the ground, but third time has been the charm, and it's coalesced with more numbers growing up and becoming fans and becoming involved in the women's game. So it's not by accident that third time is the charm. It's the right timing, and now when we're talking about a situation where there's a team in Kansas City that built its own specific stadium. They're talking about an expansion team in Denver that builds a stadium just for the women. And then, I see what's happening at Audi Field with the Washington Spirit. Huge crowds, great atmosphere. And it just also shows you, in the case of the Washington Spirit, men, women, it doesn't matter. You put on a good product and you treat the fans and supporters well, and you have a chance of success, and that's why they're succeeding.
Yeah, and obviously talking about, like you mentioned, the World Cup. Correct me if I'm wrong. You got the opportunity to call the final in 2006, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, that is a dream. I would kill to be
That was special.
that headbutt. That was something. I mean, I have relatives that are French, so hearing the stories is obviously amazing. So, how was the experience calling that game? Because I mean, obviously you were able to call previous games, but that, I mean, it's like the cherry on top.
Well, I mean, that whole month, the 2006 World Cup that I was involved in, it was one of the best months of my life, quite frankly. And it's one of the best memories of my life will be that final, right down to the fact, and you can Google some of this history, but it was played in the Olympic Stadium in Berlin, the final, and that's a stadium that goes back to the 30s and has so much history. So you could just feel it, and there's nothing like, with due respect to the Olympics or anything else, nothing like the World Cup. And the numbers prove it in terms of the worldwide interest. The World Cup is so much bigger than the Olympics in terms of viewership, interest, and it brings countries and people together like no other event. And quite frankly, felt that on especially in Germany that year. And now you get to the final, and it's the culmination of not only a soccer celebration, but the best of what the world can be, where you can compete but still be united in sport.
Yeah, I mean, me, Chase, and Andrew, we were all at a sports broadcasting camp last week, and a lot of the kids that we go to camp with, they're not really cultured when it comes to like soccer and all that. So I actually was doing a PTI contest against somebody, so we were debating, and I ended up losing, but I debated that soccer and the World Cup was the greatest tournament in the history of sports, and people were saying, no, it's March Madness. I mean, and I was competing against 3 other people, and all 3 of them chose March Madness, so it was kind of tough competing against them. But I mean, you're right.
I love honestly, March Madness.
In my honest opinion, soccer and the World Cup is the greatest. I mean, it can't get any better than that.
Well, the stats prove it. That's the bottom line.
Yeah,
I love March Madness, but quite frankly, March Madness does not belong in the same sentence with the World Cup.
Thank you.
And that sounds like I'm slapping March Madness. I'm not. We're talking billions and billions of people watching.
Yeah. I mean, every country in the world, obviously. And you get moments like, for example, when you were a part of the World Cup in 2006, I mean, it was Messi and Ronaldo's first. Like, that is a huge moment, and they're legends. So it goes way beyond that.
No, well, you can count on probably 2 hands where soccer is not the number one sport in a country. The United States obviously is one of them, Canada. But all right, there's your 2 from North America. Every other place, it's the number one. India with cricket. But we're talking. There's a lot of countries in the world, and there's probably 10 or 11 you can say it's not the number one sport. That's not a lot.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Johnson, for joining us today. It's been a real pleasure. And I wish you the best with everything, including the rest of the MLS season, NWSL, and of course, as the Wizards approach next year. So thank you again.
Appreciate the time, guys. Stay in touch.
Thank you. Thank you so much.